Hello again, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. So, if you've listened to any of my shows, then you'll recognize that there is always a focus on growing your business, especially because of my own background in various forms of lead generation. But lead gen continues to change at a rapid pace because of the channels, how consumers are maturing and how they approach the journey, and a lot more. So, what do we do to look at the tactics differently that we'll need to focus on today to accelerate that growth? Dayna Rothman is the author of Lead Generation for Dummies, the VP of Marketing at Mesosphere, and she's a subject matter expert at revenue-driven demand generation and content. And on this episode, we'll discuss lead gen strategies, channels, tech, platforms, and more. So let's tune in to a lead generation Smartie with a lead generation Sharky on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Dayna, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. So what's your background? What's your story?
Well, I have been in B2B marketing for the last while. I really kind of got my start at Marketo, where I helped them build out their content marketing engine, kind of pre and post IPO. Exciting times. And then from there, I worked at a variety of different kind of startup, post Series B, post Series D companies, building out their B2B marketing team. So I kind of went from content marketing to owning the whole thing,
Yeah.
from events, demand gen, SDRs, the full marketing team.
So I got to meet you through your book, Lead Generation for Dummies, which
Mhm.
is kind of it's a good Bible, starter Bible, if you will,
Mhm.
for a lot of us that live in the lead gen space. But how and why did you decide to write a lead gen book, and why for the Dummies brand? Did they approach you, them? How'd that happen?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story, and I think that they actually source their authors differently these
Yeah.
days. But back when I originally wrote the book, they actually reached out to me because of the writing that I had done at Marketo. So they targeted me specifically because Marketo was known as a leader in lead gen, and me being the person that runs content and that wrote, the majority of the content there. That's where they really sought me out. So I got contacted by one of the author procurement people from Wiley, and originally, they pitched me the book, Lead Gen for Dummies. But I also had to create a full book proposal, and she kind of went and proposed that to the Wiley's team. I had to write a full table of contents even before they accepted me as an author. So it was, they sourced me, but they also had to accept me as well.
Absolutely. Well, so then how do you look at the lead gen space today, especially as you've seen it grow over your career? Where do you sort of take a high level overview of where we are with lead generation? What are the things that you think about commonly that you struggle with, that are your go-tos? What do you feel best about? Where do you sort of see the space as it is today?
Yeah, I mean, the space is consistently evolving. However, the approach I take to lead gen or demand gen today with my team is thinking about it more than just lead generation. I think of it as really lead acceleration, because
Good
it's great
point.
that you have like a net new lead that you have in the top of your funnel, but ultimately, it's the marketing team's job to also nurture that lead through the sales funnel. And as buyers, become more mature and they, educate themselves, there's more information out there. It becomes more important, like the act of accelerating that lead versus just that net new sourcing. So I think, kind of the idea of lead generation is almost, we almost need like a renaming of it to be more, lead acceleration and thinking about full life cycle. So that's how I think about it on my team today. We have different content and different programs and channels that we apply to each stage of the buying journey. And, those things work differently and depending on, where that particular lead is. But we tend to spend a lot of time in the middle of the funnel, like doing programs that are more targeted. So maybe we'll focus on, ABM programs, or I do a lot with field marketing and targeted events. and personalized content and outreach, because that's really what's pushing the needle or moving the needle. And I would also say that for many marketers, that's probably the most challenging part of lead acceleration or demand acceleration, is like, how do you influence that buyer that's in the middle of the funnel, because at that point they also might have interaction with your SDR team or your AE team as well, and you really need to have a tight partnership there.
Yeah, so I want to look at three different sizes of companies, if that's okay. Let's just call them small, medium, and large. I hope those naming conventions
Sure.
aren't too
Yes.
technical if you're listening at home. But what do you think are the most important things from a lead gen standpoint that each size business, has to consider? And I ask that because a smaller company, it's easier to pivot, but it's more expensive, if you will, with the considerations and pressures on the owners versus much more difficult to pivot for a much larger company due to politics, technology, legacy systems, whatever, for a large business, but they're not necessarily going to go bankrupt. When you start thinking through the strategies for each of those and looking at them a little bit differently, not only from the size of the business you're with today, but when you think through how to strategize with each of them, what kind of things stand out for you from a small, medium, and large standpoint?
Sure. So one thing that is going to make a difference will be what size company you sell into. So that's something to keep in mind, because you might be a small company, but maybe you sell into only like the Fortune 50.
Exactly.
So that's going to affect what type of strategies and tactics you use. However, just kind of thinking about them broadly, certainly, I think for both small, medium, and large, content marketing is one of the most important things that you're going to have, because that's how you build a foundation. That's the fuel for all of your lead gen programs. Everything we do, whether it's digital, social, SEO, email programs, that's all like the foundation is content marketing. And so that's typically where I start when I kind of join a new company, regardless of the size, is to assess what the content roadmap looks like, and what's available. Is there top funnel educational things that'll bring people in, like infographics or videos and stuff like that? And then also, is there that deeper kind of meatier mid funnel, and then leading into customer testimonials and other product focused content? And so that's one of the things that's incredibly important when you're building out any type of lead gen program, because like I said, that'll be what you'll use throughout everything.
Amen.
So for all three sizes, I would say that is incredibly important. Another thing that I think is important, and I think that the scale of this can vary depending on the company size. I am a huge believer of in-person events. I think that that's kind of a captive audience. That's your chance where you can make a really big impact. You can also have your sales reps meet folks face to face. And I think of events as not just a, like, I'm going to scan people at my booth, but also what customers are attending the event, what open opportunities are attending the event, what target accounts, how can I have a presence that's not just the booth, that's maybe like a dinner or a happy hour, that's like ancillary to the event. And obviously the more budget you have, the more you can kind of go with this strategy. So from a smaller company, it's really understanding what are those must attend trade shows. But I think even at a smaller company, you can get away with having a targeted dinner for key executives that are attending the event, that are also opened opportunities or prospects, and you can keep that reasonable. I've also partnered with lots of companies before for like different happy hours. Like maybe you can find a company in your space that's doing a targeted happy hour that makes sense for your audience, and share the cost. On a much larger scale, I've done a lot of large kind of ancillary events around big trade shows. So right now at Mesosphere, we were attending an event in our space called CubeCon, and we actually got Ice Cube, the rapper, as our talent, and we hosted an ancillary party, which we called Ice Cube Con.
Hmm.
And obviously, getting somebody like Ice Cube, that takes more budget. It was a very, kind of built out event. We had different VIP levels. We invited influencers, We invited customers. We got a huge reach with it. We also closed a lot of business from that event as well. So that's kind of how you can take an event and really blow it out. But there's, kind of different levels along the way. And then I would say a third one, and this isn't really like a channel, but I would say this is a must have to make sure that your lead gen is really successful, is that sales and marketing alignment piece. I think a lot of, especially in kind of smaller growing teams, this is something that's often kind of put to the side or not spoken about as much. But in order for your lead generation to be effective and for your leads to convert, you need to have a really tight collaboration with your sales team.
So, how was O'Shea Jackson Sr. as a guest, and did he curse or look angry while he was there?
No, I would say
Did you ever call
that
him Doughboy?
no, I know it was very, I was very polite.
Yeah,
And I mostly interacted with him through his entourage. He had,
yeah,
lots of people that were, interacting on his behalf. But, I was so pleased with the show that he put on. Because
I
sometimes you do
bet.
these things and you're like, okay, is this person gonna phone it in or how's it gonna go? But Ice Cube really worked the crowd, and I mean the crowd, and we sell into developers. So this crowd was like developers, IT people, like CIOs, and they were going nuts. And Ice
Oh,
Cube was just
that's great.
like totally, getting down with the room. So it
Yeah.
was a fantastic show.
Well, you know what they say in lead gen space: either don't know, don't show, or don't care what's going on in the hood. That's what we
Mhm.
always say. So, bad boys in the hood reference. So at least let's pivot a little bit and talk about some of the channels because I love what you said about content and couldn't agree more. But with paid especially, so much of what we hear about lead gen is how paid is pivoting with the evil empire that is Google. But and so all of us in the space driving growth have made the folks at Google and Bing and now Facebook and soon Amazon even wealthier. But where are you with paid search and display and social, and where does it figure into your lead gen plans now versus your longer term strategy?
Yeah, so we obviously have a digital presence. So for me and for most of the B2B companies that I've worked for, I do invest more heavily into Google AdWords.
Sure.
I find that channel from a paid
Or Google Ads
digital
as it's
is
called now.
Google Ads. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
See.
They're big shift for the year. So
Oh, well, obviously I need to listen to your Rand Fishkin
there you
podcast.
go. Well, I think we called it the
uh,
evil empire there. So
Oh, okay. Well, so that's as far as digital space,
mhm.
where I do invest. We do have ads running on all the social channels just so that we remain relevant. LinkedIn performs the best for us
Thank
out
you.
of all the
Yeah.
social channels, but I mean, you can get very targeted in LinkedIn. The other thing that we do is we do a lot of account-based advertising. So we use a platform called Terminus, and that
Sure.
enables us to connect with companies based on like company IP, and so that we can get really personalized with the ads that we serve to our top target accounts. And so we're doing quite a bit of that from a digital perspective. And then I'm also trying things a lot. So like we have some ads right now running on Quora to see how that's going
Yeah.
to work. I do a lot of, aside from content syndication, like I will every once in a while run ads on like industry publications and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's important to know what works and what doesn't, and to kind of test your creative and your copy, and just to kind of test budget.
Always be testing. I agree. So
Yes.
then how is direct mail and email, those, Jurassic forms of
Hmm.
marketing, how are those performing for you as a whole in your career? And I mean, they still knock it out of the park for most people, especially
Yep.
well, both of them.
Yeah, I mean, email is always going to, be a huge one for engagement.
Sure.
And I've always been a pretty a huge proponent of email marketing, having come from Marketo.
Yeah.
So, whether it's running our lead nurtures or, doing segmented email sends within within our instance. We do spend a lot of time email marketing, and we do a lot of testing, subject line and content, and obviously it depends on your audience and how engaged they are. But we at Mesosphere, we get a ton of great results through email marketing. And then direct mail is certainly something that has kind of come back into popularity the
Hmm.
past few years. And I've done quite a bit of direct mail. So we've done direct mail. We use it for our account-based marketing programs. So I'll send out either like executive direct mailers, which are usually like dimensional mails. And sometimes, you can get creative with that, or maybe do some wine or some, different like cheese plate packages. And then we also have our SDRs sending direct mail as well. So we use a tool called Sendoso that connects into Salesforce that our SDRs have access to, and they can send out like cupcakes, cookies, gift cards, and so they use that as part of their outreach sequences as well. And then from a marketing perspective, we'll usually do the bigger sends, or my field marketers will do sends for folks in the region.
So something that I've spoken about at several conferences over the years is leveraging influencer marketing for lead generation. And you reference in the book at the time you wrote it that you didn't create a chapter on influencer marketing, but it could have been a whole book. And I completely agree. I'm still trying to decide if it's a chapter or the book itself for my own book. But how do you look at influencer marketing today?
Yeah, so it's something that I want to spin up more here at Mesosphere that we've been really talking about is because we do have a lot of influencers in our space that do interact on Twitter. And so, making sure that we're up to date on those folks and interacting with them is important. I would say that we haven't quite gotten it off the ground here yet. Influencer marketing was a big part of what we did at Marketo,
Yeah,
and then it also carried into a lot of the other martech companies that I worked at. Is I mean the martech community has a lot of very active influencers, and so it's very important to maintain those relationships and to consistently be interacting with them. Us selling into the kind of developer IT space, completely different set of influencers that we're still working on, trying to figure out like what the best method is to connect with them.
agreed. At least from channels, then, how do you look at channels, especially with your experience at Marketo? But if you look at channels and really best practices in an omni-channel view, I mean, Marketo has always done a great job of sort of personalizing and dividing all the campaigns and looking at all the touch points. But really, when you look back at that single message to Joe and Sally customer who are looking at one thing and they get mixed messages from mixed channels, how do you sort of strategize and think about that from an omni-channel point of view?
Yeah, I mean, we try to run similar campaigns, at the same time. So like if we're running a campaign on one channel around a certain topic, most likely we're running that on other channels as well. And you can do a lot with, personalization today and ads and with Marketo, where it's like if somebody downloads a piece of content around this particular topic, then I can throw them into a topic-based nurture.
Yeah.
I can, show them topic-based ads so that it is more personalized, to the particular journey they're on, and that we try to be, more persona-based, and making sure that we're, trying to show people the right content at the right time.
So you talk a great deal about social media in the book, and I really enjoyed those chapters. But I want to pivot slightly to online reputation management. I've spoken about this at conferences multiple times now, and I'm a firm believer that if you have a bad reputation, and this is probably a little more in the B2C space, especially just because of the venting that goes on, in your online reviews. But I mean, this is one that stands out especially from a negative customer experience point of view, and those customers talk on ORM sites online. I believe it'll affect your bottom line. I've seen it
Hmm.
firsthand, but that's my point of view. Please elaborate, if you will, on your point of view and what you've seen in the marketplace today with different clients and advertisers that you've seen.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, like you mentioned, that B2B is probably slightly different
Yeah.
than the B2C space, in that, like,
Thank God
if
people
you're
don't
in the
rail on
B2C,
LinkedIn, you know?
right? I mean, we've Glassdoor and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And a few other like review sites like G2 Crowd and whatever. But it's not quite as pervasive as B2C. However, there are definitely negative things that people say
Sure.
on social media about the brand. And I think it's important to, well, for one, we're always monitoring the different sites to just kind of see what people say. And when it comes to somebody saying something negative, the way that I typically have my team approach it is, I don't think there's anything wrong with responding in a respectful way, especially if it is something that needs to be like cleared up, or
Absolutely.
maybe
Yeah.
somebody misunderstood something. And so I encourage people or other members of my team, like sometimes I'll have like an AE that'll reach out to me and send me something that somebody tweeted, and I'll suggest, hey, I would write back in this sort of way. I like other people to write back other than like marketers,
Mhm.
because
Agreed.
then it seems like a little bit more authentic than just, here I am,
More than
like
a
the VP
copy
of
paste.
marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah, just but it definitely does happen, and so it's something to be aware of, and it's also something to expect in certain circumstances. So depending on what you're doing, so like when we did the Ice Cube event, I was prepared. I knew some people would really like it, some people would think it was a terrible idea, some people would talk about Silicon Valley startups, and I just, you kind of have to be prepared for those types of reactions,
Sure.
and to react accordingly.
But you know how awesome it would have been if you had had Ice Cube respond to those people?
It would have been, but
Oh
he
my
never
God,
would
that would have been
have.
amazing. So that, that so tech, how should someone, you come from Marketo, a brand that is, been a fantastic brand over the years. How should someone look at tech today with what they're implementing? What kind of things do you start thinking about when you start considering all the pieces that go in and what you need to implement?
Yeah, I mean, Martech is an incredibly noisy space.
Yeah, a little bit.
There's a lot going on there, so you really have to sift through and figure out like what are the kind of must-haves and what are the nice-to-haves. And I mean, for me, a must-have is always, it always starts with a marketing automation platform, whether it's Marketo, Eloqua, or HubSpot, or whatever you're using. That's going to be really one of the key foundations of anything you're doing, because that'll connect into Salesforce and all of your other tools. And then from there, it's figuring out what's critical. So for us, attribution measurement's really important. So we need to make sure that we have a separate marketing attribution technology that enables us to measure things on a very specific level, much more so than you can do in Salesforce or Marketo. If you have like a webinar strategy, you're going to want to get a webinar platform. If we have a lot of like data optimization tools as well, and that connects in with the sales team. We have a social media management platform. I have in the past had content platforms like Uberflip or
Sure.
Vidyard. And so if that's important to you, then look into those types of tools. So I mean, there's so many things, honestly. And it really depends on what are the most kind of, what are your critical initiatives, like this year at Mesosphere. Right now we're going big on ABM, and we're building that out. So Engagio, or an ABM platform, is something that's important to be able to support that.
So when Dana's strategizing through a campaign, what else are you considering, when looking ahead and sort of think through really what's when you start planning out what's next for marketers? Where do you see lead generation going in the future?
Yeah, so right now, as we're kind of thinking towards the next few quarters on my team, we're focusing on content and video specifically. Like, how are we going to be, how do we build out our video program here? It's not something that we've historically spent a ton of time on, and so that's an area that personally on the team that's going to go that I'm going to focus on. Like I said, also ABM, building that out. And personalization, just working on all the different ways that we can personalize the buyer journey from both a persona as well as an account based, from an account based perspective. So those are just a few things. I mean, there's a ton of stuff out there. But I think, and we do a lot of creative campaigns and creative content, but also just like making sure you have the basics and the fundamentals is also important.
Have you ever had anybody on your team disagree with you on a strategy and then you say, wait, I wrote the book on lead generation?
I have had people disagree all the time. And, I don't know. I don't think the greatest answer would be, but like, I
No.
wrote the book.
You could call him
Uh,
dummy.
so,
Here's my book, dummy, on lead generation. Well,
basically, if somebody's on the team is disagreeing, and that's totally why I hire people that are
absolutely.
like experts in their domains. I just say it's important to,
Good for
you can
you.
disagree, just provide a good reason why you disagree, and then a solution for moving forward.
Good. Dayna, you reside not too far from San Francisco Bay, where there once were a lot more sharks than there are today. And the show's called A Shark's Perspective. The water's quite dirtier and more polluted than 100 years ago when Alcatraz was full, but there's still a few great whites in the area. So I have to ask you, what is your favorite kind of shark and why?
Hmm. That is a good question on the
You
shark.
have to have a favorite shark. Everybody should,
I
at
like
least.
yeah, I feel yeah. I like a hammerhead shark.
Good.
For really probably no good reason. I remember when I was growing
I
up,
love it. Yeah.
my my father had, I don't know, this is like back when like taxidermy fish was
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
Like they had a moment in the 80s, I feel, and he had this like giant taxidermy hammerhead shark in
That's
his
great.
office. And it was like, kind of like crazy colors, like, and it always scared the crap out of me. So I'm gonna go with that.
I want that. Well, Dayna, it's that special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions you're going to be asked today?
I am. I'm ready and nervous
All right.
as to what they could be.
Well, number one, you should be. Number one, Game of Thrones question: House Targaryen, House of Stark, or House of Lannister?
It used to be House Targaryen, but Daenerys, I think she's getting a little too power hungry these days. I don't know if you would like at this point, I guess, lump Jon Snow in there as well. So we'll see. House Stark is starting to grow on me more, as Sansa's really coming into her own. Arya, she's an ass kicker. So I'm going to go with Stark for now.
Good point. All right, number two, direct mail or paid search display and social?
Hmm. That is also a good question. Gosh, it's like part of me wants to say direct mail because I just like direct mail, but I don't know if I would trade direct mail
It's like old school,
for
new
all those
school.
things. There's like a lot of things. You see, like social, digital, and SEO. I don't think I can trade all of that for direct mail, so I'm going to go with social, digital, and SEO.
Gotcha. Number three, Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel?
I'm going to go with Captain Marvel.
Wonder Woman was a better movie, but Captain Marvel did better than I thought it would. Number four,
I liked it.
cost per lead or cost per sale?
Oh, cost per sale.
Good, good answer. Number five, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Cornbread, yeah, with some jalapeno in there.
Good, good. Thank you. So, Dayna, where can people find out more about you and follow your thought leadership and more?
You can connect me on LinkedIn, Dayna Rothman. Also, I am on Twitter at DayRoth. But I would say I would probably be more active on LinkedIn, and I post blogs and articles there and stuff too.
Good. Thank you very much, Dayna, for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
So there was my conversation with Dayna Rothman, the author of Lead Generation for Dummies, the VP of Marketing at Mesosphere, and she's a subject matter expert at revenue-driven demand generation and content. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with her. First, as she said, we need to look at lead gen as more than just lead generation. It's more like lead acceleration. The consumer journey has changed, so more important is how we nurture the lead, since the lead itself has become more mature and sophisticated. Fishing, if you will, isn't that hard if you help your customer solve a problem. For a fishing analogy, though, keeping them in the net is a whole other story. Second, content marketing should be an important part of your lead gen program. It's a foundation for so much of everything else you do and how you deliver messaging and advertising. And keep that simple and consistent. Remember, as you've heard me say often before, the confused buyer says no. Third, whatever way you handle sales, know that your sales and marketing alignment is crucial to the success of your lead generation program. You've got one customer, help guide them through the journey to fix their problem. That takes both the efforts of marketing and sales working extremely closely together. It may sound simple, but I can give you 50 real-world examples of where it doesn't happen enough. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you so much for your time and for letting me speak with you about another one of the many components that makes up marketing today. So we're putting this shark back in the water. Be a smarty, not a dummy, and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective. Shark out.